it's time to feed the arms. Now, watch carefully. We're going to do the arteries to the arms, to the upper limbs first. And in order to make sure that in most cases, the situation is symmetrical. So I can draw one side of I can draw the right side and be fine, and you guys can just flip your brain and do it on the left, and it's the same. When it comes to the arteries coming off of the heart, coming off of the aortic arch, it gets a little bit bizarre, and so we need to make sure that everybody's cool with who's coming off of the aortic arch. First of all, we have an artery that isn't found. There's only one of them. There's not a right and a left. So these are not symmetrical. And this is the brachiocephalic artery. So, I'm going to go like that. I'm going to go like that. That's a 1. See that 1 that's staying there? And I'm going to write it down here. Brachiocephalic artery. There are 2 brachiocephalic veins. There's a right brachiocephalic vein and a left brachiocephalic vein, but there is only one brachiocephalic artery, and it is the first branch other than our coronary arteries. It's the first branch off of the aortic arch, and it is heading to the right side of the body. Now, let's do our other 2 branches just so that you can have a visual. The next person that branches off is the left common carotid artery, and that's the middle branch off of our little arch here. And then the third branch is the left subclavian. I'm going to sneeze, although I'll be happy if I don't sneeze on video. Left subclavian is the point at which we can then say, oh, as soon as we find the right subclavian over here, that'll be awesome, and we'll make sure that then we're symmetrical on our arms. But until we get there, it's a little bit funky. And one of the things that's funky is that we actually have, you would imagine that we'd need a right common carotid, and indeed, our right common carotid comes off of the brachiocephalic artery. After the right common carotid comes off, guess who we are now? This is the right subclavian. What do you think that is? Why are my words disappearing? Technology is so fun. Okay, the right subclavian and the left subclavian. From here on out, we're going to be normal. Our carotid arteries, our common carotid artery, is going to feed our brain, and so we'll deal with that when we get to brain in the next section. But let's see what happens to the subclavian, where it goes and what it does. So it actually, there is going to be a point where it turns into the axillary artery. And remember, all of these are going away from the heart, so we're feeding things. The axillary artery, there is a marker at which, I can't remember if it's as soon as you get under the clavicle, that then you're the axillary artery, and I was going to make a note of it and remember it forever. Of course I was, right? But I can't remember. And then I think it's teres major, that when the axillary artery passes by teres major, the muscle, then it becomes the brachial artery. Brachial. Brachial, armpit, axillary armpit, brachial like arm. The brachial artery, where have we heard of brachial artery? Did we do that in here? Did we do that in physio? The brachial artery is where you listen for blood pressure sounds. The brachial artery, after your elbow, zone, the brachial artery splits into two arteries that are clinically significant, the ulnar artery, which is medial. Seriously? And what do you think the other one is? The lateral one is the radial artery. The radial artery is where you take your pulse. And you can feel it right now. Go ahead and do it. That's why I'm including, in fact, I don't think they're included on our list, but they are included on our list. Sometimes I cross things off. Sometimes I add things on. And it's important that you have the radial artery and the ulnar artery included. Let's see. Those are all our arteries. Now we're in our fingers. Now we have to bring the blood back. Are you ready? Let's see if I can do this backwards. My brain has a hard time processing. I think I might have to do it from the heart, knowing that these are the pathways that are bringing the blood into the heart. I don't think I can go from here and go back. Those are our arteries. I'm going to a new heart right there. I don't know where all those little markers came from. I suppose I should try to erase them so that we don't get too confused. Now, here we are. I'm going to make my pen blue so that we remember that now, please remember, we're coming back into the heart, but I'm going to start our path at the heart and build backwards. And someday when I'm a better drawer, I'll be able to do this the other direction, but I can't do that yet. From the arm, where do you think the blood is going to enter the heart? It's going to enter through this superior vena cava. So right here is where we're going to come in. And superior vena cava, let's just make our little arrows so that they stick out. Superior vena cava branches into two brachiocephalic veins. So let's, okay, I got to make sure that I've got my, yes, that's exactly correct. So at the branching point, we get two, so this would be my left brachiocephalic vein. And here's my right brachiocephalic vein. And the brachiocephalic vein, somebody branches off of that, and I think it's relevant for us to keep track of this. We're going to have jugular veins branching off, and again, keep in mind that our blood is actually passing this direction. So these are jugular veins that are flowing into brachiocephalic, which is then flowing into the superior vena cava. Don't forget that. Brachiocephalic turns into, who do you think? And what's the marker? I don't know. But at this point, brachiocephalic is now subclavian. That's cool. So from the arm, subclavian flows into brachiocephalic, which flows into superior vena cava. What would you expect that subclavian would actually feed into? And you're right. There's a point at which subclavian becomes axillary. So this right here is axillary. And that is a point. That is an anatomical point that I can't remember what it is. Axillary, at that point, the subclavian actually branches, and one of its branches is called the cephalic vein. Again, this is bringing blood back from the hand. So cephalic is coming lateral. Axillary is coming more medial. Axillary branches again, and it's going to branch into, okay, so again, axillary is not going to last for very long, but it's going to branch into the brachial vein. So I'm just going to make a star and put it down here. Brachial vein. And the other branch is called the basilic vein. This guy right here is basilic. Basilic is medial. Cephalic is lateral. Now watch what happens. The cephalic actually is going to travel all the way down. Now, the brachial vein does all sorts of crazy branching, and it goes deep. So cephalic and basilic are actually superficial. Brachial is deep. Let's make a little note of that. And here's the other thing that I want to tell you that I think is really cool. Veins tend to be superficial, which makes sense. There's not as much pressure in a vein, so if it gets damaged, if it gets broken open, you're less likely to bleed to death than if, say, an artery breaks open. An artery is experiencing the pressure from the heartbeat, and if you bust that thing open, you're more likely, or you're going to bleed out a heck of a lot faster. So let's throw our veins more superficial than our arteries, so if damage happens, it'll happen to the veins, and we'll be less likely to die. This is a good strategy. So you often see we have these superficial veins. We really don't have very many superficial arteries. We have a few places where we have superficial arteries. Those are pulse points. Those are places where you can actually take your pulse. But we got to protect those places. The pattern of superficial veins is extremely variable. And so what one person has, the pattern that one person has is totally different than what somebody else has. And we can talk about this in a second, but there is a superficial vein that connects basilic and cephalic. And this one is called median cubital. Now, somebody somewhere told me, I want to say it was basilic, I can't remember, one of these veins. Median cubital is a common vessel for drawing blood. That's why it's really important that we know it. And one of these, cephalic or basilic, and I can't remember which one, was like a no-no for drawing blood, and I can't remember why either, but somebody just told me this fact this semester, so whoever you are who told me that fact, tell me again so that I can remember why that was that we don't draw blood and which one we don't draw blood from. After median cubital, there are ulnar and radial veins, but we're not going to know those. I think this is it for our vessels themselves. Basilic and cephalic do continue down the arm, but then, I mean, the branching, the netting that is happening is very varied and diverse. So this little visual will do the trick for you. So imagine blood is in your hand. How did it get there? It went through the whole arterial pathway to get to your fingers. Now it's going to come back. There's lots of ways it could come. If it's in your pinky, it'll probably come up basilic, and it probably will continue up basilic and then head into axillary and then head into subclavian and brachiocephalic and back into superior vena cava and into the right atrium. To the lungs, oh my gosh, it's kind of cool. You can like follow the path all the way around your body like multiple times, and don't worry, we will do that. If you wanted to go to our friendly little fingers, well, here's our pathway. We come out of the left ventricle. We go up the ascending aorta and into the aortic arch. We branch off quickly into the brachiocephalic artery. We pass into right subclavian artery, into the axillary artery, into the brachial artery. And then if we're going to the fingers, like, dude, let's pick a route. Which way do you want to go? Let's go to the radial artery just for fun. And then we can take our pulse using that blood. How's that? That's pretty straightforward. I think we did everything. The next thing we're going to do is see how do we get blood to our head.